Hello, you're watching TVP World News. I'm Oleksandr Syrskyi. EU foreign ministers are meeting in Brussels today to discuss the latest developments in European security, including the recent railway sabotage in Poland. The summit takes place as reports emerge of an alleged peace proposal for Ukraine agreed between Washington and Moscow. Our EU correspondent Angela Skurgens has the latest on both European reactions to these reports and on Poland's response to Russian hybrid warfare activity. Hello, Angela. Good to see you again.
Good morning. Yes, so let's start off with the 28-point peace plan. This has been reported by Axios. However, the foreign ministers that have attended this morning's meeting streaming into the building behind me, none of them have confirmed that they were briefed on an alleged plan, expressing caution that this actually exists, however stating that if it does, Europe needs to be consulted and have a seat at the table, as well as the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. Reporters did ask the EU's foreign policy chief, Kaja Kallas, regarding her reaction to the existence of this plan, if it in fact exists. This is what she said in response.
First, we're going to discuss Ukraine. We had a very good plan to discuss very specifically what more can we do with the Shadow Fleet, because it really has an effect on Russia's revenues to finance this war. But of course, now we are going to discuss also, the recent news. What we as Europeans have always supported is a long-lasting and just peace, and we welcome any efforts to achieve that. Of course, for any plan to work, it needs Ukrainians and Europeans on board. So this is very clear.
So a diplomatic response there to a very vague reports of an alleged peace proposal. Now let's move on to the other thread that was very much visible in the course of these talks, as likely to be, right? It was quite readily apparent even as they were approaching, right? The question of the attack on Polish infrastructure. Can you tell us more about how the Russian operation in Poland is being discussed in Brussels? Is any concerted action likely to be agreed upon?
Yes, so we know that the Polish top diplomat Radosław Sikorski stated that he expects this potential attack on critical infrastructure that could have led to lots of deaths in Poland. He said that it should be discussed today. He didn't outline what actions the EU can actually take in combating this type of hybrid warfare. This is because it is particularly difficult. We heard from an EU diplomatic source state that the efficacy of thwarting this types of warfare can be challenging, as we know that most of it comes from harmful foreign actors, hostile foreign actors. However, it is difficult to interrogate. But the Polish Foreign Minister, Mr. Sikorski, gave an update regarding this incident. He stated that 2 individuals from Ukraine with alleged ties to the Kremlin have been arrested, while also outlining what Poland is doing to combat these threats in the future.
I have already taken the decision to close down Russia's last remaining consulate in Poland, in Gdańsk. We will restrict further the movement of Russian diplomats in Poland, and we will send before the end of the year $100 million for Ukraine, for armaments from the United States to Ukraine in support of the Pearl program. But this is just what I'm doing as the foreign ministers. This will go further.
The Lithuanian foreign minister also just spoke to the press roughly 10 minutes ago, calling on tougher sanctions against Belarus for hybrid warfare occurring in Lithuania. We are talking, of course, about those balloons full of cigarettes that were flown over Lithuanian airspace, closing down an airport. However, yet is still to be seen regarding what actions the EU can take against these actions, as well as that alleged 28-point peace plan. There is going to be a press conference scheduled for later today, where hopefully we can put an end to the speculation and get some clarity.
Angela Skurgens there, live from Brussels on the summit that's just about to begin there between the ministers of European Union member states. Thank you very much for joining us and for bringing us this update. Now we're moving on to our next story. The recent attack on Poland's railway infrastructure, believed by the Polish government to have been orchestrated by Moscow, has also turned up the heat on the country's political debate. Piotr Miszczuk has more on how Poland's Conservative president and centrist government exchanged blows over the security and political implications of the incident.
Now that Poland has fallen victim to an act of Russian sabotage on its railway line, Polish President Karol Nawrocki, who hails from the opposition Law and Justice Party, was criticized by the Polish Foreign Minister Radosław Sikorski for his EU-skeptic stance.
When you speak in an anti-EU spirit, you're not representing Poland's position, only your own and that of your office, not even your voters, because you did not run on a poll exit platform.
Sikorski thus lambasted Nawrocki for his Independence Day speech earlier this month, in which the president suggested that Poland is losing its sovereignty to the European Union.
We see that some Polish politicians are willing to give away Polish freedom, independence and sovereignty piece by piece to foreign institutions, tribunals and EU agencies.
Experts point out that in his speech Nawrocki was portraying the EU as a threat and not Russia.
Harsh words and criticism were directed solely at the West. The word Russia was not mentioned once, even though it is Russia that is the aggressor, threatening us and shaping Poland's political situation.
Sikorski didn't have to wait long for a response from Nawrocki's camp.
Instead of focusing on apprehending the perpetrators, instead of securing Polish infrastructure, including critical infrastructure, who is the Polish government minister attacking? Not the Russian Federation, not Vladimir Putin, but the Polish president. That was exactly what Putin and the Russian Federation wanted, to turn Poles against each other.
But the rift between the president and the government might lie in who they see as Poland's strategic partners. Donald Tusk's government gravitates more towards European allies and their approach to the war in Ukraine.
There is no doubt that it is in Poland's interest for Russia not to emerge victorious from this confrontation, and that we continue, I hope effectively, persuading President Trump to adopt this European position.
With President Nawrocki seemingly trying to curry favor with US President Donald Trump, who had endorsed him in the heat of the Polish presidential campaign in May, Nawrocki presents Trump, who has opened dialogue with Putin, as Poland's friend.
President Donald Trump invited the President of Poland to the G20 summit. He invited me, but he invited all Poles.
Experts argue that this is a flawed approach given Trump's weakening military commitment to Europe's security.
In the current geopolitical situation, with President Trump in the United States, who in a sense wants to withdraw his troops from Europe and is scaling back his involvement there, Europe must take matters into its own hands.
With Foreign Minister Sikorski stressing that President Nawrocki is in no position to dictate Poland's foreign policy.
Mr. President, you have the right to your nationalist views. However, if you want to put them into practice, you should have sought the office of Prime Minister. The constitutional role to which the nation has elected you does not allow you to shape Polish foreign policy according to your own whims.
With Nawrocki celebrating only 100 days in office last week, he's likely to continue to find himself on a head-on collision course with the government, 2 years shy of the next parliamentary election. For TVP World, I'm Piotr Miszczuk.
Ukrainian Defense Minister Denis Shmyhal and the Commander-in-Chief of the Ukrainian Armed Forces Oleksandr Syrskyi met with a US delegation on Wednesday. The Ukrainian officials expressed gratitude for the military aid provided so far and said Ukraine is ready to share the experience gained in the course of the war. Shmyhal told US Army Secretary Daniel Driscoll that Ukraine is grateful to the United States for approving the sale of a support package for the Patriot air defense system. The sale's estimated value is $105 million and would allow Kiev to more effectively repel Russian missile attacks. Additionally, the Ukrainian minister said that the country is ready to work with its allies on joint security solutions. During the meeting, Ukrainian officials also briefed Driscoll on the current situation on the battlefield. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky's desire for more prisoner-of-war exchanges with Russia was one of the main subjects of recent talks in Turkey, a country which facilitated similar agreements in the past. During Zelensky's visit, he also spoke with his Turkish counterpart about security guarantees, restarting peace talks with Moscow, and security in the Black Sea.
Peace and security must be ensured, and on this matter we share the same view with Turkey.
These security guarantees are extremely important. We believe in the strength of Turkish diplomacy and that it will be understood by Moscow. The importance of security in the Black Sea is well known to everyone. This security can be guaranteed only by Turkey. We are also making great efforts to restart prisoner exchanges. We are working for the return of our captured soldiers, civilians detained by Russia, especially Crimean Tatar political prisoners. Of course, we are also working for the return of abducted Ukrainian children. We hope to restart prisoner exchanges by the end of the year and bring back a significant number of captives. Turkey is giving us great support in this regard. In our talks today, we emphasized that the Istanbul process, the talks between Ukrainian and Russian delegations, should continue with a pragmatic and results-oriented approach. At a time when the war's exhausting effects for both sides are deepening, I stated that we believe the Istanbul talks represent an important milestone in efforts toward a diplomatic solution.
Speaking to TVP World on the record, Tordis Kolbrun Gylfadottir, Special Envoy of the Council of Europe Secretary General on the situation of the children of Ukraine, said that Moscow is responsible for abducting tens of thousands of Ukrainian children and relocating them deep into Russian territory. The Special Envoy added that Russia must be held accountable for its war crimes.
We know that these are tens and thousands of children. But what is important is to track them, to know where they are, to bring them back, and then to hold Russia accountable for their actions, because this is not a consequence of being in a war. This is strategic and systematic from the top down, and it's horrific. And I think everyone, every normal human being, understands how fundamentally wrong it is to steal other people's children. And therefore, this should be extremely high on the political agenda, and this should be, it is very important to raise awareness about the fact that this is happening in real time, that we know it, we see it, we track it, and also for regions that are, more neutral when it comes to this war, Russia's war in Ukraine, because this is the part of the full-scale war that I think every normal human being, understands and feels is not right.
According to Reuters, the US Special Envoy to Ukraine, General Keith Kellogg, may be about to leave his post early next year. His resignation is widely expected to be a significant blow to Kiev, as Kellogg remained a strong critic of Moscow and an advocate of robust security guarantees for Ukraine. This development comes as Ukraine is allegedly facing pressure to accept a new ceasefire proposal reportedly agreed upon between the US and Russia without Kiev's input. Keith Kellogg told his colleagues that January would be a natural end to his term as envoy, because extending his tenure beyond 360 days would require Senate approval. According to one source who spoke to Reuters, Kellogg never intended to stay in the Trump administration for very long either way. Initially appointed as special envoy for both Russia and Ukraine, Kellogg was reassigned to focus only on Kiev, reportedly because the Kremlin objected to his involvement in the peace talks, viewing him as too pro-Ukrainian. Since then, Kellogg's role in the Trump administration and its peace efforts has been taken over by Russia's preferred negotiator Steve Witkoff, a real estate mogul and longtime Trump ally with no previous foreign policy or military experience. And with this, we conclude our news bulletin. Please stay with us here on TVP World for more latest news and updates.